Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
If you suffered with chickenpox as a kid, it could come back later in life to haunt you as shingles. Shingles is a very painful skin rash, and its biggest complication is severe, long-lasting nerve pain known as post-herpetic neuralgia, which I can abbreviate to PHN. So shingles is an outbreak of the herpes zoster virus. That's the chickenpox virus. When you had the outbreak of chickenpox as a kid, it was known as varicella zoster. So chickenpox and shingles are caused by the same virus, but given different names at different times. Now, according to research, approximately 99% of adults over the age of 40 have had chickenpox. This virus remains in your body in a dormant state, but it can be reactivated at any time, and the risk of reactivating it increases with age as your immune system naturally declines. So, hi, my name is Jerry Hickey. Welcome to my episode, Can Nutrition Help Shingles Pain? I'm the Senior Scientific Officer over here at Invite Health. I'm also a pharmacist nutritionist. Now, thanks for tuning in to the Invite Health podcast today. You can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts or by visiting invitehealth.com/podcast. We have hundreds of them up there. Please make sure you subscribe. Please leave us a review. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. The info on this episode, by the way, is linked at the episode description. So let's get going. So can nutrition help with shingles pain? We'll get to that. So what does shingles start out as? We call that presentation. Shingles presents as a painful rash with many blisters that typically occur on one side of the body. Now, the blisters will typically scab over in 7 to 10 days, and they typically fully clear up within 2 to 4 weeks. Now, in the United States, 1 out of 3 people will eventually develop shingles. That's an estimated yearly rate of 1 million people. Anybody who has had chickenpox is at risk for developing shingles. Later on, I'll tell you some of the medical treatments for shingles, and I'll tell you what increases your risk of an outbreak other than age. So your risk of getting shingles and also having the serious complications like that terrible nerve pain increases as you get older. The most common complication of shingles is that long-term nerve pain. It could be really seriously, dangerously painful. I mean, I've had people contact me who had the pain. They're still suffering with extreme pain 3 months later. In fact, the reason I came out with this episode today is a dear friend of mine came out with an attack of shingles on his scalp. I mean, imagine how painful that is. I mean, you can't even go for a haircut. You can't brush your hair. You can't lie down on your pillow. I mean, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. So the PHN, which is the post-herpetic neuralgia, occurs where the rash broke out, where the shingles rash broke out, even after the rash clears up. It can last for months. It can last for years after the rash goes away. For some people, this pain can be extremely severe, even debilitating. I mean, they can't go to work. They can't function. It's severe pain. Now, generally, people only develop shingles once, but it can happen multiple times. I once knew a woman who had a terrible tragedy in her family. She broke out with shingles 3 times. This is before we knew the natural solutions for shingles. This was when I used to run a pharmacy back in the 1980s. So shingles can lead to very long-term complications, debilitating pain that lasts for months or even years. And in rare cases where it breaks out in the head, serious long-term eye or hearing issues can occur. Now, no matter how healthy you feel, your immune system declines with age. Certain things help that, by the way. What helps reverse that? Getting sufficient levels of vitamins and minerals, getting sufficient protein, getting sufficient rest, getting sufficient exercise, eating your vegetables and fresh fruits, but also probiotic bacteria can be helpful. Nucleotides, we've discussed these in other podcast episodes. Nucleotides can be helpful. Beta immunity, supplying beta-1,4 glucan can be helpful. So these are risk factors for a breakout of shingles. Important to know. So once you had chickenpox as a kid, even though the rash of the chickenpox cleared up, the virus, the virus that causes chickenpox will stick around. It's called herpes zoster. Oh, I'm sorry. It's called, the chickenpox virus is known as varicella zoster. When it stays dormant in your body, and later on in your life, it comes out as shingles. Then it's called herpes zoster. It's no longer called varicella zoster. It's called herpes zoster. It's not herpes. It's not the sexually transmitted herpes where you get the sore on your lip or the sore further down by your plumbing. It's not that. It has nothing to do with sex. It has to do with chickenpox. So while anybody can develop shingles, certain factors increase your risk. So age, the risk of shingles and shingles-related nerve pain increases significantly in people after the age of 50. A weak immune system. So like people who've been treated for cancer, people with HIV, people with diabetes, they have a heightened risk because their immune system doesn't work well. Taking immune-suppressing drugs raises the risk. So there are certain immune-suppressing drugs for autoimmune diseases, like Humira. People might take that for colitis or Crohn's disease. And then there's even more powerful immune-suppressing drugs. They totally wipe out the immune system. They totally suppress it. They use those drugs in people who've had organ transplants, like a heart transplant or a kidney transplant. Diabetes increases risk of a breakout. I say that again because so many people have diabetes. If you get your sugar under control, if you get the inflammation in your body under control, if you're exercising, getting sleep, eating your fruits and vegetables, like a Mediterranean type diet, you're taking certain supplements, it'll help reverse that trend where you have poor immune system function in diabetics. You can reverse that. Stress. I see this all the time. People hit their 60s. They're very stressed out for whatever reason. So when you have intense emotional stress, it makes you more vulnerable to a shingles breakout. The stress hormones weaken the immune system, so that could be why. Lack of sleep is also a problem. All these things increase the risk of a breakout. Now, in addition to the nerve pain from a breakout, from the initial rash and then the nerve pain, there's other complications with shingles, besides the post-herpetic neuralgia, which is the nerve pain. Scarring. If the shingles outbreak is near your eye, you can have vision problems. From what I understand, and I've never seen this in my practice, I've been a pharmacist since the 1970s, but if the shingles breaks out in your lungs, it could be extremely dangerous. You can have partial weakness, even paralysis of areas that are served by the affected nerves. So shingles, the major thing, lots of blisters that are painful, extreme pain, a rash. So there is an FDA-approved vaccine. It's called Shingrix. It's for the prevention of shingles. It's used in people 50 years and older, 50 years of age and older. The problem with the vaccine is there's a rare incidence of Guillain-Barré syndrome in some people. That's actually scary. Guillain-Barré syndrome is rare. Sometimes it's fatal. It's an autoimmune disease. The most common cause is an infection you get in your intestines called Campylobacter jejuni that you could get from infected chicken and undercooked chicken. But you can also rarely get it from a flu shot. A very small fraction of people develop Guillain-Barré syndrome because of vaccines, like the meningococcal vaccine, the poliovirus vaccine, the flu vaccine, the rabies vaccine, but also the Shingrix vaccine. In fact, not too long ago, the FDA, the American Food and Drug Administration, said, hey, you have to include a warning with the Shingrix, the shingles prevention vaccine, that there's a risk of Guillain-Barré syndrome. That's how strong the connection is. That's how strong the evidence is. So there's an increased risk of Guillain-Barré syndrome. You get severe muscle weakness. It can lead to paralysis. Some people are paralyzed for a day. Some people are paralyzed for months. Some people are paralyzed for a year. Some people are paralyzed for many years. The paralysis could be minor. it could be moderate, it could be actually very severe. So your body's immune system is attacking and damaging your nerves, and this leads to muscle weakness, and this can parlay into paralysis. It's really not fully understood, but the syndrome typically follows infections with a virus or a bacteria. Now, each year in the United States, up to 6,000 people typically develop Guillain-Barré syndrome, so it's rare. So that's about 20 cases of Guillain-Barré per million people each year. Now, can anybody develop Guillain-Barré? It's more common among adults. It increases with age. People over the age of 50 are at the greatest risk of developing it. Most people fully recover, but some have permanent nerve damage and permanent paralysis, and it can last for several years. It'd be lifelong. So there's varying degrees of weakness or tingling sensations in the legs and hands, usually in a descending fashion. There's a spread of weakness, abnormal sensations to the upper body. There's, pins and needles, like that prickly feeling, that prickly sensation in the fingers and toes. You have trouble walking upstairs. Your gait is unsteady. That's how you walk. You can't feel textures. You can't feel heat. You get loss of reflexes. There's also, sadly, a difficulty in controlling your bowel and your bladder functions, so you develop incontinence. Now, because your nerves control your movements and body functions, people with Guillain-Barré may experience the following: breathing difficulties. I mean, the weakness of paralysis can actually spread to the diaphragm muscles controlling your breathing. That's a potentially fatal complication. Long-term numbness, heart and blood pressure problems, because it can affect the nerves that control your heartbeat. That's cardiac autonomic neuropathy. Pain, bowel and bladder function problems, we said that. Blood clots. You can wind up with decubitus ulcers, pressure sores, because you can't feel anything. There's a 3% relapse rate. So if you've had Guillain-Barré, about 3% of those people, it comes back and bites them a second time. Now, the recovery from Guillain-Barré, usually within weeks, but 30% of people still have weakness 3 years later. So I have some people telling me, I don't really want to get the Shingrix immunization. I'm more afraid of the Guillain-Barré syndrome than the Shingrix shot. However, putting things in a proper ratio, you're much more likely to get a shingles outbreak than the remote risk of having Guillain-Barré syndrome. But it should still be said. So what's the mortality rate? It's pretty high. Even though Guillain-Barré syndrome is rare, about 6,000 Americans a year, up to 4% of people, 3 to 4% of people with it die. So it's devastating. It's sudden onset. It's devastating. So in a post-marketing observational study, there was an increased risk of Guillain-Barré syndrome during the first 42 days following vaccination with Shingrix. So the FDA evaluated this, and they said, hey, this is real. You would have 6 excess cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome per million people, per million doses. So that's per million people. Well, no, not really. You have to get 2 doses, right? So that's per 500,000 people. That's actually a lot. That's almost like doubling the number of people with Guillain-Barré syndrome. So, interestingly, it didn't follow the second dosage of Shingrix. If you were going to develop Guillain-Barré syndrome, you got it after the first shot of Shingrix. So some people don't want to take it. I mean, they don't want to take it. Now, what about the post-herpetic neuralgia? The worst symptom is shingles, the pain. About 20% of people who get shingles develop post-herpetic neuralgia. Severe pain that's long-lasting. So you get a burning sensation, a painful sensation. It becomes sensitive even to temperature changes. Age is the major likelihood of developing that. So how can they treat it? Well, doctors can give creams. I'm not against that at all. Capsaicin cream, which is like a hot pepper cream. It's from the hot chili peppers. Lidocaine patches, that's a local anesthetic. That's pretty safe too. But they might tell them to take Tylenol or Advil or drugs such as codeine or hydrocodone or oxycodone. Watch those drugs. The codeine, the hydrocodone, or the oxycodone are highly addictive. They can make you kind of woozy, so it's dangerous to drive a car. They make you constipated. They also use tricyclic antidepressants. They have a lot of side effects, like amitriptyline, which is Elavil, or imipramine, which is tofranil. They have a lot of side effects. They also use anticonvulsants, drugs that were originally created for epileptic seizures, like carbamazepine, which is Tegretol, or pregabalin, which is Lyrica, or gabapentin, which is Neurontin. Neurontin doesn't really work that well. Lyrica is much better, and I think Tegretol is much better too. But you can help it naturally. So the post-herpetic neuralgia can disappear within 1 or 2 months, or it can last for years. So there are things that help that are natural. My number one go-to supplement for people with nerve pain of any stripe is Alcar with ALA. Alcar with ALA is the go-to supplement. I've used it in scores of people that had nerve pain, or maybe they had chemo. Now, the studies with Alcar with ALA are showing that with chemo, you can still have nerve damage with powerful chemotherapeutic drugs like carboplatin and different powerful drugs that they treat cancer with. You could still have nerve damage, but it prevents the nerve damage from becoming excessive. Far fewer people will get severe nerve damage from chemotherapeutic drugs used to treat cancer if after using the drugs they start taking a course of Alcar with ALA. And during the time when they're on the drugs, they could take Alcar by itself. But you have to discuss that with your oncologist. And there's many, many studies showing that Alcar with ALA is really helpful for people with diabetic nerve pain, different kind of sciatica nerve pain that travels down your spine and down your gluteus maximus and down your leg. So there's many studies with Alcar with ALA. Alcar with ALA are natural to the human body. But when somebody has nerve damage, if you give additional, it's great for the nerve pain. I have a slew of studies how it's great for nerve pain. Now, they haven't studied it with shingles nerve pain, but I've given it to a number of people with shingles nerve pain. It's helped them dramatically. It really has. They've written me letters like, thank you so much. So Alcar with ALA, natural to the human body. If you give some extra, it's great for nerve pain, regardless of the cause. I've seen it help some. I had a mountain climber that hurt her ankle. She had persistent nerve pain. I gave her the Alcar with ALA. The nerve pain went away quickly. That's a unique situation. I've had a lot of people with diabetic numbness, like in their feet, and I gave them the Alcar with ALA, and the nerves started healing and working again. So they stopped getting that pins and needle or the electrical nerve impulses. It started coming back to normal. I've had a bundle of people with shingles nerve pain where it helped them dramatically. I mean, a number of people. So what's the number 2 go-to supplement for nerve pain, including shingles? B vitamins. If you get the active form of B12, methylcobalamin, it's great for nerve pain. That's not the type of B12 typically used in most multivitamins. If you get the active form of folate, folic acid is synthetic. The active form of folic acid is methyl tetrahydrofolate. It's great for nerve pain. If you get the active form of B6, which is pyridoxal 5-phosphate, it's great for nerve pain. So I start off with Alcar with ALA. I could add the methyl B. We have a methylated B vitamin with the active forms of the B vitamins. That really helps people with nerve pain. There's a form of B1 that's great for nerve pain. It's a fatty soluble form, benfotiamine. They studied that in a number of studies of people with diabetic nerve pain, diabetic peripheral neuropathy. Sometimes they call it polyneuropathy because it happens to nerves all over the body. And that's important because diabetes not only affects the nerves in your hands and feet, but it affects the nerves in your stomach. You could develop gastroparesis, slow emptying of the stomach, which is not a pleasant feeling. You could even develop damage to the nerves in your heart, autonomic cardiomyopathy. Well, autonomic cardiac neuropathy. So the benfotiamine has been shown to help with that. So if you have nerve pain, look at these 3 supplements. They're very safe. They're great for the brain. They're good for your memory. They're good for your energy levels. They do a lot of good things in the human body. They're all natural to the human body. So Alcar with ALA, number 1. I generally give people 2 tablets an hour before breakfast, 1 tablet an hour before lunch. The benfotiamine, I give 200 milligrams with breakfast and lunch, so twice a day. And a methylated B vitamin, that's the active forms of the B vitamins, I generally give 1 a day with breakfast. And it really can help with nerve pain. So thank you for listening to our episode. And thank you for tuning into the Invite Health podcast today. You can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts, like iHeartRadio, etc., or by visiting invitehealth.com/podcast. And we have hundreds up there, hundreds, literally. Please make sure you subscribe and please leave us a review. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Invite Health. Hope to see you next time on another episode of the Invite Health podcast. Thank you so much for listening.